All right, so welcome back to another episode of Sober Yoga Girl. I am super excited to have one of my friends on this episode who I have done some sober work and collaboration with in the past. Sarah Williamson is in the UK. She is a sober coach and she is the creator of Drink Less, Live Better. So welcome, Sarah.
Hi, thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thank you. Yes, I'm looking forward to and enjoying our sober spring at the moment. The weather is just changing here and it's lovely now.
Oh, good. I'm so glad because you guys had you had a cold winter. It snowed for the first time in the UK, right?
Yeah. We had plenty of snow. Yep. But lots of daffodils and crocuses and tulips coming up now, so it feels hopeful and full of colour.
Oh, good. Yay. I'm happy to hear that. Just as it's getting too hot for us to be outside. So why don't we start off the episode and you can just give me a little bit of background on you, kind of who you are, what your interests are, and what you do for work.
Yeah. I'm 43. I'm a mum of 2 teenage boys, a wife, got a dog. I'm in Surrey in the UK. And I've spent the last, since I've had my children, I've spent a long time working in youth offending, and I've got an interest. I suppose now my focus over the last couple of years has really become living a sober life and all of the good stuff that brings. My life has changed quite a lot over the last few years, and it's a big part of obviously what I do now, but also how I live my own life.
Cool. Oh, I'm excited to hear more about kind of the sober journey for you. Let's start off with just kind of telling me a bit about when you started drinking and what aspects of life in the UK kind of influenced your drinking habits.
Yep, I grew up in a really small village where there wasn't a lot going on. I probably started drinking in quite a typical British way, or certainly the group of friends that I hung out with, we probably weren't that different to a lot of people in my secondary school. It was a case of catching up in the park on the weekends and drinking, where either my friends had got older siblings who would buy alcohol for us, or perhaps alcohol had been misappropriated from parents' booze cupboards. And certainly it was a village where the only other buildings in the village apart from a school and a church were 2 pubs. So I had a job in a pub from probably when I was about 14. Quite a few of my friends were older than me, so they were drinking in the pub from an age where I was younger than them, but would hang out with them in the pub, and I would pretend to drink Coke but really be drinking something else, and they'd be buying me other drinks. And certainly the laws were not as tight as they are now, so there was no problem with 14-year-olds hanging out in the pub, well, particularly because I worked there at that point in time, and it's certainly not like that anymore. My drinking when I left home and started university certainly escalated considerably. It was that opportunity to hang out in the student union that you socialised, you made friends by drinking a lot. I don't really remember. I know there were social activities that didn't involve alcohol, but certainly alcohol was a massive part of the socialising, getting to know new people and using it as a confidence booster. That Dutch courage thing that I certainly, looking back, know that I never could have considered going out on a university night out and drinking soft drinks. None of my friends would have ever have done that. It would have been, I think, questioned, if as to whether you were on antibiotics or had something wrong with you if you weren't drinking. So I started off at university in London, and then I moved down to university in Devon, and they were very similar cultures. Exeter's another big city, and again, lots of a big student culture, drinking culture there. And then I moved back again and started work in London. And my job in London there was a whole bunch of us all in our early 20s, all working the kind of job where you would traditionally have said that you work hard and play hard, and actually play hard was a euphemism for drink hard. And so we worked really long hours, and then we went out and spent a lot of even more time together, but that time was focused around drinking. And certainly, you know, that was a time in my life where I felt pretty invincible and was able to be out until whatever time in the morning, get the night bus home, have a shower, change, and come back into work and manage to function at work just fine the next day. And it's the kind of thing I look back on now and think, yeah, that could never possibly happen now. But, you know, when you're in your 20s, that was what I could do then. And it was what my friends were doing. You know, we all gave each other the permission and the power to do exactly the same. And then I met my lovely husband. And in fact, life really changed. After that point, we moved in together and got married. And so my drinking really de-escalated at that point. But still, we enjoyed drinking together at the weekends and going out with friends, and the going out was more dinner parties or nights in the pub with friends or restaurants. So a different scale of drinking, a different level of drinking, but it was still certainly a big part of what we did. And then I had our 2 babies and certainly had extended periods of not drinking then, probably for the first time since I'd started drinking. So that would have been throughout my pregnancies and the time when I was breastfeeding my boys. And then I think it just slipped back in very much as part of that mummy drinks culture. And I'm blaming nobody else for my drinking, but it was then having friends, you know, with babies the same age as mine or toddlers the same age as mine, where what we did on Friday nights was kick back with large glasses of wine because it felt like our reward for the end of another week done. And those weeks were so different to our working weeks before we'd had our children, because these weeks with toddlers, some of it felt really hard in a different way. Some of it felt you're often sleep deprived. Often, whether we wanted to admit it or not, there might have been a certain amount of boredom or monotony. And so it was a different type of drinking for slightly different reasons, but still looking back on it, certainly more than was good for me or useful to me. And so to a varying degree, that carried on over the next few years. And now my boys are early teens. And a few years ago, I just decided that I was going to make a change to the way that I was living. And I was really glad that I did do that.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. You know, I've never heard Dutch courage before. Is that a UK phrase?
Well, yeah, so maybe it is. It'd be interesting to know what the origin of that is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Dutch courage. That's quite a common saying here. Yeah, we'll have to Google it.
So we would say liquid courage when I was a teenager, which I think is like the same thing. But that, I was like, oh, I've never heard that before. So it sounds like you kind of went through like the almost, like, I don't want to say normal drinking, but like the way our culture, you know, encourages drinking, like the mommy wine culture. You know, I've heard lots about that. I'm not a mother myself, but you even see it in the, you know, the wine glasses that say like mommy's sippy cup or whatever. And that was definitely a thing in North America. And I didn't realize that it was like, you know, global as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think, you know, I only have to scroll through my Facebook feed on a Friday from 4:00 with, let me tell you, absolutely no judgment at all. But, you know, at that time on a Friday, you scroll through and that is all of those memes of, you know, the point at which, you know, I need a glass of wine, and people absolutely using that as a tool at that point in their week. Like I say, no judgment at all, because that absolutely was what I was doing. But I was doing it because I hadn't considered the fact that there might have been an alternative way at that point. That was the way that my brain was working at that time. And at that time, I didn't have any problem with it. It was what I thought was working for me.
Right. Absolutely. And then it just hits a point where it's like, it's not anymore.
Definitely. Yeah.
So let's talk about that. What was the point that made you want to quit?
So I definitely didn't have any kind of rock bottom. And I think that whole rock bottom thing is such an interesting concept. There's a book I've just read, actually. It's Bryony Gordon. Her Glorious Rock Bottom is a fabulous read. And that idea that when you hit a really, really low point, then you've got something to really push up from. And this is the point, your foundation, if you like, from rebuilding what you want to do going forward. And I never had that. I would describe what I had as a series of small realizations. And those realizations definitely came in the form of hideous hangovers, or walking home and bouncing off a hedge, or waking up with an unexplained bruise, or smashing a glass when I was washing up at night, or, lots of what I would describe as small things, nothing that was particularly significant. But as all of those things added up together, I became more and more uncomfortable with what I was doing. And I remember waking up many, many times where I would say, right, never again, but I would never actually mean never again. Never again only meant until the next time. And definitely did that, WhatsApp text exchange friend message thing with friends that I'd been out with the night before, where we would all be waking up in the morning and telling each other how dreadful we felt, not doing that again, and not going there again and whatever. And then I think it just happened for me one more time that felt like the straw that broke the camel's back. And that was the time when I went, no, I did say never again, and I really mean never again. So I used a tool for probably about 6 months or so, where I decided I was going to be a different person when I went out with a particular group of girlfriends. And we used to either do a big night out in a pub, or we would get together round at each other's houses, generally on a Friday night, probably about once a month or so, in a big style way. When I say big style, I mean drinking a massive amount way. And we would get together, head down to the pub, and I used this tool for a while of saying to myself, clearly otherwise they'd have thought I was a little bit strange, I am the person who drinks 2 glasses of wine in the pub. And I use that as my mantra, walking down to the pub. I am the person who drinks 2 glasses of wine in the pub. I am the person who drinks 2 glasses of wine in the pub. And I went a really long time with that working okay for me. So we used to drink wine in the way of ordering bottles of it. So there was a constant flow of the wine and glasses being topped up, and you never really got to see how much wine you drank until you knew it was far too much. And, because in a pub they take away your empty bottles, you also don't see what's been put away. So you don't think, oh dear, we've already drunk 2 bottles. You just carry on. Anyway, that worked out okay for me until it just didn't. And I hit a point where I was drinking a glass of wine in the pub one day, and I thought, I don't think I actually like this. I had that realisation of maybe it was a bottle of wine that wasn't what we usually ordered, or I don't know, but I definitely just thought, this just doesn't taste good, feel right. And I was then on a Zoom call with some people who were in a course that I was doing at the time, and we were talking about the changes that we wanted to make in our life. And this would have been in October 2019. I said, I've got a really big goal. It's coming in the future, and it's going to be in 2020. So I'm just kind of getting ready for it now. I've got just over 3 months to prepare myself and get my head in the game, and then I'm going to go with it. And they were saying, oh, what's your goal? What's your goal? And I said, no, I can't tell you what the goal is. I'm still just getting it ready in my head. And other people were declaring what their goals were for now. We weren't talking about a 2020 goal in general, and it was different goals around lifestyle, well-being, nutrition, exercise, various things. And then they came back and they went like, Sarah, can't you tell us what? No, I cannot say what it is. I'll tell you when I'm ready, but it's not now. And they like left me alone for a little bit. And then someone else said, oh, come on, this is killing us. What is your goal? And I said, I'm really, really scared. If I say it out loud, then I'm going to have to do it. And my fear was, by speaking it, I was going to really have to put the wheels in motion, and I did not know whether I would be able to do it. So I got ground down and I said, okay, my goal is that I'm not going to have an alcoholic drink in 2020. And honestly, it was silence. It was, what a Zoom screen looks like, and it was various faces just looking at me with completely blank looks on them, because why would you choose that? What on earth are you thinking? And of course it was all of the stuff about, have you got a problem? Then, why are you coming up with that as a goal? And I suppose that was part of my fear of speaking it out loud, was the judgment. And I don't mean, that group of people are a lovely group of people. Of course they weren't standing in judgment, but it did just seem like I was saying something that other people couldn't possibly have understood. And of course, as you and I'm sure you would have a similar feeling to me, alcohol is that thing that if you say you're going to stop drinking it, people do want to know why from you. And if I were to tell the same bunch of friends that I've decided to cut back or stop my crack cocaine habit, they'd have been utterly supportive. They wouldn't have questioned why. That made it sound as if I do have a crack cocaine habit. I don't actually. But nobody would question that as a bad thing, whereas you say you're going to stop drinking and people really want to dig down sometimes and find out why. So once I had spoken it out loud, whilst it terrified me in that moment, it was so good to get it off my chest. And what then happened, it was a switch flicking in my brain, because I went from I'm not going to have a drink in 2020 to very quickly questioning why I was waiting till 2020. And so I actually stopped drinking not long after that conversation and went into 2020 with a dry stretch under my belt already.
Wow, that's amazing. It's incredible how sometimes even just speaking your, we were talking about this earlier, speaking what you desire or you want can put it into reality.
Absolutely. And alongside that, I'd always say writing it down as well is a powerful tool, that brain-hand connection. So all of the different ways we can bring, our reality into being, we should try all of the ways, throw the kitchen sink at it. Yeah.
So tell me more about, once you did quit drinking, what were the main benefits you experienced?
So for me, I had spent quite a bit of time feeling not quite 100%, but I couldn't put my finger on it particularly. And I thought that the reason I didn't have as much energy as I wanted was because I perhaps wasn't eating as well as I could do, or being hydrated enough, or doing the right kind of exercise. I wasn't sleeping as well as I could do, and I was blaming, actually, anything else that I could possibly think of. So I was thinking that my hormones were fluctuating all over the place. I was thinking it was because I had certain worries about my family going on at the time, with some health issues that were going on. So I was feeling it was an anxiety about that. I was having moments of total brain fog and thinking that was hormones as well. I remember one day I said to myself, I looked out of the window and there was a fire engine going past. And I said to my son, oh, look, quick, come quickly. Come and see the... And I was pointing at the fire engine and looking at my son, and I had completely forgotten the word for fire engine. I was pointing at it and seeing the thing, and I did not know what the word was. And I had this horrible, my body ran a bit cold in that moment, and I thought, well, that is it. I've got Alzheimer's or dementia, or clearly something is going horribly wrong in my brain, and definitely catastrophizing all of these other things, and thinking that there was something that was wrong with me. And interestingly, when I stopped drinking, all of those things went away, all of them. So I suddenly started sleeping so much better, and the stuff that I thought had been a symptom of fluctuating hormones wasn't at all anything to do with that. My brain, where I definitely was feeling like I was struggling with my memory over certain things, all gone away. And it was one simple thing. And I just find that in itself so interesting, because I could have gone down a route that was all about, I did have a conversation with my doctor about my worry about what was going on in my brain, and she is supportive and wonderful and would never be dismissive, but she was very reassuring. But of course, one of the things that she didn't say to me was, why don't you consider drinking a bit less? Because we don't say that to people as a recommendation for their health and well-being. We're more likely to say, how about eating a bit better? How about making sure you're hydrated? How about doing some exercise? When would you ever expect your doctor to tell you, why don't you just knock the wine habit on the head for a while and see how that feels? That's just not what we're programmed to hear in the UK. So anyway, it was a really positive. The benefits were, they came, some of them came quickly, and some of them came over a slightly longer period of time.
And, when you were describing that, I just got shivers, because I had this thought of like, I've done 15 episodes now of this podcast, and everyone seems to have had, a different thing going on with them, whether it's their sleep, whether it's their blood pressure, whether for me it was like my mental health, and hearing so many of these different things all just being tied to this one factor. It's almost unbelievable. You're like, how is it that we haven't figured this out yet?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And to know as well, and this isn't a criticism, but to know as well that we can go to our doctors about any number of things that might be wrong with us, and the alcohol conversation just wouldn't feature, just wouldn't be part of the conversation. There's that part where I see we absolutely should be responsible for ourselves, as well as, accepting what we put into our bodies in terms of eating good food and, whatever tools we use around our mental health. But really to give consideration to just changing that one thing can lead to so many more benefits. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so tell me about, since you've become sober, you're now developing sober coaching and courses. So what inspired that? And tell me about the work you do there.
Yeah, so I think once I had gone probably about, maybe about 8 months without drinking, where I had set my original goal as being 2020 without having a drink, when I'd first started out, I thought, just wait until the 1st of January 2021, I'll be really desperate for a drink by then and it will be fabulous. And my birthday's the 4th of January, so that birthday in the future is going to be some kind of big deal. And, how I'm going to socialise. I mean, obviously this was not thinking about a global pandemic at that particular point.
Right.
As I got further away from the last day that I had had a drink, I came to realise that really this was a lifestyle change, and where I thought I had put a timestamp on it, it was actually turning out not to feel like that anymore, that it really was becoming a part of who I was. And so at that point I started to consider all of the tools that had really helped me in my alcohol-free journey up until that point, and also the things that had not been helpful at all, and started to think about if I had been in my position when I was back in the previous October, wondering how this thing would ever be possible for me and feeling very doubtful about whether it could, how I could help other people in that situation myself. And I was thinking about how my future self could have helped my past self, if it was possible to clone yourself and time travel. I could have really used in the early days somebody to help me see that the vision I had for myself was possible, and not only possible but really enjoyable. So that is what Kate then has led me down the path of doing several different trainings, some retraining, doing lots of new learning, and then being able to put together packages where I offer group training programs and also one-to-one coaching. And I have been loving doing this, and meeting you has been part of that lovely journey as well. And seeing that there is such a movement now for people to start making this kind of change in their lives. And I really believe that where we start to talk about this kind of positive change that we've made in our lives without talking about all of those things that potentially you might think that you miss, like how am I ever going to relax without alcohol? How will I have fun without alcohol? How will I socialise? How will I be courageous? How will I connect with my partner? All of those things, to be able to show them, to be able to show the world that it's possible to do these things, not only possible but enjoyable. It gives other people the opportunity to see that what's possible for someone else might be possible for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so inspiring. You know, what you said, I really resonate with that concept of you being able to, like, your future self would have been able to help your past self. And I think often that is what what we bring to the world is like where we experience a lack of support in our lives is where we want to create the support for others, you know?
Yes,
and so
absolutely.
I find that really inspiring. Yeah.
Love it.
So if someone were interested in quitting drinking, and I'll post all the links to all of your info in the episode and everything so that our listeners can find you if they're interested in learning more about what you do. But just to finish us off, if someone were interested in quitting alcohol, what advice would you give to them?
My advice would be to be bold, be brave. It feels like it's going to be a big deal in your life, or for me, that is how it felt. For me, it felt like I might have had to make being sober my full-time job. At one point in the past, I felt like this was going to be a massive mountain. This was going to be something to endure. This was going to be something to get through. And once I'd made that decision to do it and I'd spoken it out loud, actually it became none of those things. And so making the first step was the hardest step. And after I'd made that step, the pathway cleared for me. And so all of those things that might be going round in your head about how will my friends judge me, and you know, how will I ever achieve the XYZ things that alcohol brings me? Don't worry about those things now. Don't worry about them, and make the first move. Do it boldly, do it bravely, look for the support that you might need and go for it.
Oh, Sarah, you're so inspiring. That was amazing advice. I'm grinning. I know people that will be listening to this audio won't be able to see, but I'm just like grinning because I just feel so, feel so inspired by your message.
Thank you. And it's lovely, being in the work that we do in. We're so lucky to be able to see each other and point each other out and celebrate each other and be inspired by each other so that other people can see that happy place. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, thank you so much, Sarah. This has been an amazing episode. I really appreciate your time. And I'm looking forward to kind of following your journey and seeing kind of where the sober path takes you. Lovely. Likewise. Thank you so much. It's been a real joy. Thank you. All right. Bye.